My name is Bruce Bruni, retired U.S. Coast Guard Reserve, retired captain, '06. I joined the Coast Guard in 1970 as an enlisted person, served until 1974. Then I joined the Coast Guard Reserve in 1980, was commissioned in 1986, and served through 2011 when I retired. I deployed for Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm with Port Security Unit 301, and we were at the port of Al Jubail, Saudi Arabia. I deployed again to Haiti in 1994 with the same unit to Cape Haitian for Operation Uphold Democracy. Then I was commanding officer of Port Security Unit 308 and deployed in 2003 to 2004 to the port of Ashweba, Kuwait, which was the seaport of debarkation for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I pretty much stayed on active duty for the remainder of until 2011, off and on active duty, and then again, like I said, I retired September of 2011. Okay, Camp Spearhead was in operation from 2003 to the summer of 2005. It was moved in 2005 down to Kuwait Naval Base, which is about 18 miles south of Ashweba. In between Kuwait Naval Base and Ashweba was Camp Arifjan. Camp Spearhead was operated at the seaport of debarkation in Kuwait. That was where all the ships came in that came in with all the equipment that would be offloaded and then moved up to Iraq. The same thing with stuff coming out of Iraq was again loaded up on ships and taken out. Camp Spearhead was built on a sandy gravel part of the port. It was surrounded by 11 industries, 6 of which were petrochemical industries, and there was 3 major concerns from those industries, which was sulfur, ammonia, and chlorine. There was a lot of hazardous material being produced by the other facilities as well. Because it was on gravel and sand, it became very dusty most of the time, windy. There was no paved roads in our area. So vehicles that would drive around the camp, there was a perimeter around the camp, would create up a pretty good cloud of dust as they drove around. It was kind of a joke at the camp. We all joked about it. Everybody joked about it, that we'd be glowing in the dark in 20 years because of all the stuff that we encountered. The camp, like I said, I described some of the hazardous situation there, the environmental situation. And there was a health study done, operational risk management study done by Kellogg, Brown, and Root. And he did that in 2004. And just to cut to the chase, there was 4 air quality concerns germane to the port. And that was exposure to airborne particulate matter, chronic and acute exposure to airborne chemical releases and composition, and chronic acute exposure to airborne frangible asbestos. Defense Department says that an acceptable level for prolonged chronic exposure to any concentration not exceeding 70 parts per million, 70 parts per million, is acceptable. But Camp Spearhead levels were averaged about 600 parts per million. So I feel that that's probably the reason why they moved the camp south of there. However, those guys that were still working in the port, they may have resided at Kuwait Naval Base, but they're still working and operating in the port during their duty hours. My first issue was with the heart, and that happened within a couple of weeks of returning from deployment. I was out we were stationed in Gulfport. My unit was in Gulfport, Mississippi. I was out for a run with my XO. Normally, I could outrun him, and I was having a bad day. It was huffing and puffing. It was hot, humid. So I just chalked it up to the weather. But when I went back home, and at the time I lived in upstate New York, I went to the mall shopping, was huffing and puffing walking to the mall. Again, you're in denial that there's any problem. But when I went back the next day, I again experienced the same situation. I asked my wife to take me over to the hospital. They did. They put me into the hospital. They said I had a 90% blockage. So I had subsequently had a stent in place, and I've been fine with that since. Although I'm taking medication and everything else is normal that anybody with a stent would do. I later developed prostate cancer, and that was in 2008. I had, or I'm sorry, 2007. I was diagnosed with it. I had it removed, prostatectomy, in 2008 for that, and then again later on when I retired, I had tests done. I had the whole gambit. I went to this VA in Silver Springs, Maryland. They gave me the whole everything. They complete physical there. I submitted a claim for the cardiac stent as well as for the prostate cancer. Initially, I was denied that. I appealed it, and I had a hearing in September of 2018 for that. I explained to the judge the situation, that I was in Ashweba, as well as a previous deployment into El Jubel, Saudi Arabia. But anyways, I explained the environmental issues that were there. He found in my favor. They made an award, which I didn't find out until 2019. However, nothing's been finalized yet overall for that claim. They had to go through the process of doing an audit. They sent my paperwork apparently to the Army or to DOD's pay center, got kicked back. Eventually, this past March 2020, was sent to the Coast Guard pay center. And I was just notified that that's completed. I have not been officially notified by the VA, but I was told by their VA website that it will be until March of next year. That'll be 10 years from the time I made my initial submission. I was diagnosed in 2015 with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, or also known as CLL. I put a claim in on that too. That's also, my oncologist said that the chemicals at the port were very likely to have caused, been the result, have caused the CLL. I submitted a claim which was denied this past spring. It is not an affirmative illness, even though that Agent Orange is, and a lot of these medical conditions that people are coming down with are assumed to be connected with Agent Orange. But however, they have not done that yet with the people who have deployed to the Middle East for a lot of the environmental issues. So anyways, I'm looking at resubmitting, asking for a review of that. In light of all these studies that were done at the port of Ashweba. And so that's where we're at this point. No, I was exposed in 1991 with a scud missile attack on the port of El Jubel, Saudi Arabia. It was February 16th, 1991. I was with Port Security Units 301. We were on the pier of the port. Scud missile came in, and when it did not explode. It landed in the water just off the ammo pier. The pier was just loaded with ammunition. It landed in the water about 100 yards off the pier. It was probably 900 yards from our position. All the gas alarms that the British had around us went off. Everybody ran, put their mop suits on, and the warhead was recovered by us and the Navy EOD that was on the pier with us as well. That warhead was examined later on and was determined to have chemicals on board. There was a non-proliferation review and published in their in the non-proliferation review in spring and summer of 1997 that said that there was chemicals on board. There was a CB unit there. It was a Mobile Construction Battalion number 24. The CBs, some CBs from that unit said that they were experienced rashes. Now, there was a CB unit on the same pier as we were. They were cargo handlers. I don't know if that's the same unit, but I didn't see any other CBs in the port, so I'm assuming it was those guys. Anyways, initially it was reported that scud landed 10 miles to sea. Obviously, they did not want anybody to know how close they came to hitting our port. But the Patriot missile battery was down at the time the scud came in, and so there's documented evidence. I've given you pictures of the scud, the fuselage of the scud, as well as the unexploded warhead that was with it. People are aware of the living conditions. Obviously, the mission always comes first. But and then at the end of the day, though, when those guys had rogered up to serve, I think it's important that we take care of everybody. It's my job. It was my job to take care of my troops as well as perform the mission. We performed the mission. Now we're home. And I think it's important that as a person of my rank in my position, I think it's still important to look out for the people who have sacrificed, who did put their lives on the line, and make sure that they're taken care of, that they have the treatments that they get. And because, I'm older, there's a lot of young guys that are going to be affected with some of this stuff for the rest of their lives. They've got a lot more years to go than me. And it's just important that this stuff, they get addressed for what they need from the VA. Now, I got to say, VA has been good, helpful to me, with the exception of processing this stuff. But the medical part of it, I have not had problem trying to get an appointment with the VA. I would just say one thing. There's plenty of information on the web now. And it seems like it's getting added all the time. Just search Camp Spearhead Kuwait, and the stuff will pop up. All right.